Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the New British Promotions Live podcast. I've got somebody with me this evening who is actually very new to the New British Promotions scene. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tim Strange. Tim, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me on. It's lovely to be here talking to you guys. I know I've spoken to you both online for several months, but it's nice to actually have a chat with you and get to know you a bit better.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Definitely, no, you're more than welcome. Looking forward to getting you on a show. Now, Tim, the way we normally do this is we start at the very beginning as to how you broke into the business. So I understand that you got into the business around 2003. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. So it was back 2003. I started training in the UK at a company called WZW in the northeast in Newcastle way. I trained with Mickey Limerick, Screwface, and a few other people. Prince Armin from the British wrestling, who was still around. Iceman was the trainer.
Yeah.
And Tony Spitfire, who runs First Class Wrestling, was one of the trainers there as well. So we all sort of started off together then, back in the day in a working men's, not a working men's hall, but like a community centre. Had a ring set up, so we'd go set up the ring and then go through the drills and your training and stuff like that. But it was a lot different back then than what it is now. Whereas people have performance centres and stuff like that set up. You have a lot of different training techniques, and it's a lot more opening and welcoming than what it used to be back in the day. But that's for a good thing. That's for a much better environment for people to learn and develop, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I appreciate that. You know, wrestling schools were few and far between back in 2003, weren't they? I mean, they seem to be everywhere these days. But yeah, you were. How far did you have to travel then? Was it on your doorstep?
No, it was about 2 hours on the bus from where I was living at the time. So every week I used to take the bus for 2 hours, then train all day. So we would train from about 11 o'clock in the morning until about 5 o'clock at night. And then I'd get the bus back at 8 o'clock. Then, so it was a long day, but then again, you had like people like Mojo, Prince used to travel up from Leeds. He used to get the train up from Leeds. That was another hour on top of my journey. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where people would commit to go on and train, because if you wanted to do it, you could. And I think there is a lot of training schools up and running now, but I think the majority of them, or a lot of them, probably shouldn't be training people, or not at the stage where they should. They're at the quality where they should be training people. To be honest, like, I shun away personally from doing seminars and training people, and I've been doing it for 20 years because I don't feel like I'm even experienced enough to be training people. Then you have some people there with 3 years, 4 years, running loads of training schools. You thinking, no, doesn't sit right for me. But then again, if people are happy with that and they go there and they train, then fair play to them. But I always look to people who have done it to some degree of success, that to be training and would have connections to get you there. So when you start training, you look for people who are working not just for their home promotion. You look for people who've been outside the postcode. You look for a reputable trainer who's obviously going to be there, who obviously has done what you want to do to some degree, or near enough. Someone who's done it professionally, someone who's put the yards in, put the miles in, has the connections with the right people to get you where you need to be, opposed to just some guy who's had a couple of matches for his home promotion and set up a school. Do you know what I mean? So there's a massive difference.
I understand.
There's a massive difference without going too much into obviously burying people and stuff. It's just it's easy just to say. There's a lot of training schools, but very few quality training schools out there.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I suppose then it was the best of the best, wasn't it? And like you say, Prince, coming from Leeds and things. Yeah. But yeah, there does seem to be quite a lot. You've got to make sure that you're choosing your wrestling school wisely nowadays, because there is plenty of choice. So, do you remember your first match then? Whereabouts was it? Which company?
It was actually for a company, W3L, which is having their 20-year anniversary next month in October, and I'm up there for that, so it's going to be a big show. But it was actually me versus Iceman in my first match, so it was
Iceman.
So it was me versus him. It was a tournament for the championship, and I remember it because it was sort of, we went up and he was my trainer, and Mike said, "Do you have any big guys there you could bring up?" And I was a big guy, so I went up with him, and Isaac put me forward to get me in there, said I was ready. So I went up. We had a match. It was a match. It wasn't far from a 5-star classic, but he got me through it, and obviously got the taste for it, and I enjoyed it. And then it's, funnily enough, we're up there now in next month, and me and Isaac are going up for the 20-year anniversary, so it's quite a full circle, really. We're both going up there for the same show. We're going up there for the anniversary show next month, so
that's amazing. Yeah, 20-year anniversary.
So
now, I've seen Iceman wrestle live. Now, if I was going to be going out there and having a first match, I don't know if I love Iceman, but I don't know if I want my first match to be against Iceman. I can imagine that was quite an education for you.
It wasn't. Well, I did a lot of training matches. We had the trainee shows, so my first match was obviously on the Academy show, but my first paid match was the one with Iceman. Like, I did a few matches with him previously. And stuff like that, so I knew what to expect when I go in there with him. And although Iceman's obviously well known for the deathmatch stuff and the hard strikes and everything like that, but I hate to say it, but he's actually a decent wrestler as well. Do you know what I mean? If you get him in the ring and you do an actual match with him, he's good. And I always take the piss out of him, and that's why I hate to give him any compliments. I won't tell him that I complimented him on here. He'll have to find it for himself. But it's one of those things where he's always been good to me, you know, Iceman, and now his son Jack is coming up as well, and I'm always sort of saying to people, you know, we get Jack on the shows and trying to help Jack out as well, because it's going obviously full circle now with him coming up, because I've known Jack since he was a boy, because he used to come to the shows all the time with his dad, and now he's wrestling, so it's sort of one of those things where it's nice
it's
to see,
crazy.
you know
So you
mean?
look after him.
So I look after him the same way Iceman did for me, and then that's the way it tends to go. But it's all good things. So
yeah, definitely. Well, I certainly we'll keep that secret that you complimented Iceman. We won't direct him to
just
the
edit that out. Just edit that bit out.
Yeah, so just looking online at some of the promotions you've worked for. So we've got ICW, WAW, Independent Wrestling Federation. I also, you worked with the Knights as well, didn't you? I mean, have you got any story through them? Or
I still do work with them on a regular basis for WAW down in Norwich. I mean, my first few tours going back to W3L as a wrestler up in Scotland was with the Knight family. Were on these tours. I was speaking to Zach about it the other day. Zach would have been about 13 at the time. Do you know what I mean? And he was wrestling, and Ricky was on the shows, and Soraya, the mom, obviously, she was on the shows as well with us. And obviously, I just always remember being at the shows and watching them, and before the shows they would be in the ring training people, and obviously after the shows, like when you were away for a few days, you'd be sitting in the hotel and they'd be telling you stories and sharing like insight with you and stuff like that. And they've always looked after me and been good to me. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's always been, but I'm sort of, what you see is what you get. I'm always straight with people. People are always straight with me, so I've got no real issues with anybody, but I've always had nothing but respect and love for the Knight family, and obviously they've always looked out for me when they're at shows. They've always put a good word in, and never have anything bad to say. But I mean, I think it helped me a lot with sitting with like Ricky and people like Drew McDonald in the early days, and hearing the stories and hearing like psychology and telling me about storytelling and psychology and matches and wrestling and stuff like that, and really giving you that feedback back in the day where it's telling you if something's not good or telling you how you improve.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen on there that you've worked for Megaslam and Rise as well.
Yeah.
Have you got any Any interesting stories coming out of them? Do you still work for them, or?
Yeah, definitely. I'm working with as much as I do. Like I work for anybody. I've got no issue with working for anybody who pays me and gets me on, and you know what I mean. As long as you're professional and safe, I'll work for you. I mean, I love working for Megaslam shows. They have some really nice halls. Brad, who runs Megaslam's a great guy. He always looks after me, stuff like that. And obviously they give me some good opportunities and good working in big theatre halls, working and stuff like that with some great talent. They have the best of the best talent on them shows. You know, the likes of Sticks, Martin Kirby. They've got Ricky Regan on there. It's good. Massimo, like the whole roster. Derek, everybody on there is of a high quality that you don't have to worry when you turn up who you're wrestling, or you don't have to question it. You know you're in there with someone who can do it and someone who's a good hand, you know, which is always good to have. So
and they're running near enough a full schedule now, aren't they? Megaslam, especially in the summer.
They run, I think, 300 dates a year, if I'm not wrong. So there's a lot of dates there that they tend to do. So they'll run a lot of them. I mean, I've wrestled for Rise once at the minute, but obviously me and Danny, who runs Rise, are talking at the moment to sort more dates out for next year, because he's trying to get me on other shows, but calendars, do you know what I mean? There's always tends to be every show gets run on one day of the month. And then the rest of the month nobody
it's
runs.
the way that's, you know.
It's just like it's just matching up the dates. So I sort of only take bookings 3 months in advance now. So it allows me to keep the diary pretty clear that if you can't get me in this show, you'll probably get me in the next one. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those things just to get out there and work different places and different people. So, but overall, it's always been good. Like I did a bit with Leonardo Darwin and people like that. And Rise is a great roster. Like I've great lads as well, and it's such a great locker room to be part of, because everybody supports everybody there. There's no real one guy sitting in the corner who doesn't like this guy or anything like that. It's like a very close knit. So you've got like the Deathmatch Outlaws, which is Big F and Joe, Michael Caden, Darko, Danny Darko, Lou Nixon, Michael Caden, and all these guys as well. They'll always support each other and share each other's stuff, and they look out for each other. And then the extension of that, you've got like Leonardo Darwin, you've got Brett Semtex, you've got a great roster there. You know what I mean? So it's a great, very, very talented people that do death matches, but they also do. You see them a lot on the normal shows and not at a place either. Do you know what I mean? They can hold their own. So, but it's just such a nice bunch to be around, because especially like when if you're doing well or you're doing something, they're the first ones to go on. If you release a T-shirt to say, they're the first guys to jump on and like start sharing your stuff to try to get it out there. And the moment you're doing something well, they're bigging each other up and bigging you up and saying, "Well done, mate." You know what I mean? And it's good to see, because historically it's always been, people tend to look at them and go, "Well, that's not me. Why is that not me?" That's because he's brown nosing, or he's doing this, or he's doing that. And there's none of that there. It's all, "Oh, he's doing really well.
Yeah.
Good. Well done for him." Do you know what I mean? Which is
I understand. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, looking online as well, you've done a mixture of, like, I don't know if it's 50-50, but tag team and singles wrestling. I mean, what's your preference?
I don't really have a preference. I mean, I do a lot of singles stuff. I do like the singles if I'm working newer people, because it allows me to help them a bit more and sort of work with them in the match. But other times it's like, if it's tag team, I enjoy tag team as well. I enjoy the art of tag team wrestling, and I've always been a big fan of it. So I'll do anything really, but I think it needs to be. I like tag teams to be tag teams. I don't like two singles wrestlers just chucked into a team. Do you know what I mean? I like the tag teams at least make some sort of, even if it's just putting the same color trunks on or the same color outfit on. It's something toward making you look like, if someone looked at a picture of you, go, "Yeah, they're a team." Do you know what I mean? Opposed to going out two totally different characters that would never work together. Do you know what I mean? It's just, for me, I think tag teams need to be tag teams, and there is a lot of good tag teams out there.
And from somebody who's not been in the ring, I mean, explain the differences. I mean, as obvious as you can, because I don't think they're subtle. It's two completely different skill sets, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the tag team wrestling is sort of knowing the dynamics and the psychology of a tag team match. Is you're always building up to that hot tag, and it's sort of breaking down the match, so you make that mean something. And I think that's the big part of it. The big part, really, for a lot of people is you get a breather when you tag team wrestling. So you'll tag in and out, especially if you're the villains or the heels, because you'll be tagging in and out of the match. So it's not really it's not as strenuous as if you're going in there with someone and going 100 mile an hour wrestling. It's sort of pacing yourself and tagging in and out. You get a bit more of a breather and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, it's as long as you have the psychology right and you know how to put a tag team match together, the skill set, you can move into it. But I think it's the psychology and the storytelling of it that you get really with working the matches and learning and listening to other people and stuff like that. So it's like a couple of things. It's sort of, I'm always studying wrestling. So if I'm not wrestling, I'm watching wrestling. If I'm not watching wrestling, I'm reading about wrestling. I'm always sort of got my head in something or looking at something or watching things that I can bring around wrestling, which is, I think it's healthy. But I've always been like that since I was a kid. So it's always been a sort of thing for me. And I think that for me helps me understand the psychology and stuff like that. If I watch matches and I pinpoint times of why did that person do that, and everything sort of makes sense. Whereas people are just going to do a move exhibition where you can do 50 moves. It's not wrestling. Do you know what I mean? It's just a move exhibition that makes no sense to anybody.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, have you got a preference of genre-wise, or are you a bit of everything?
I don't mind watching everything, but I get burnt out if it's the same stuff over and over again. So for me, it's like if I want to watch cruiserweight wrestling, I'll watch WCW. You know what I mean? The early '90s WCW. I'll watch the wrestling. The old my favorite era is obviously the stuff I grew up on. So late '80s up to '97. WWF stuff, WWE. But then as I got older, I got more into my Stan Hansons, my Bruiser Brodies, my Terry Gordies, do you know what I mean? All these people, the Sid Vicious, a lot more of his stuff as Lord Humongous and all this sort of AWA, Memphis territories, New Japan, like Japanese wrestling, stuff like that I get more into. But I don't mind any genre, like I watch any of it. But I do think if the whole show is that one genre, I get bored very quickly. So like, I don't mind it if it's a variety, but I can watch any style. But if it's that one style, it just gets a bit tedious.
Yeah, no, I get you. I think that when I first got the network, I tried watching it all in order, and I got burnt out with it because it was the same stuff. But I've kind of gone back to like your mid-80s Jim Crockett's and things like that at the moment. I'm really enjoying that. So, I do get what you mean when it's the same sort of thing.
So it's like
sorry?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've seen online that you've had, I don't know if it's just the one match, but you've been in there with Martin Kirby, which is a New British Promotions regular. Have you got any stories about Martin?
Well, I've known Martin since he started Kirby, so me and him go back a long time. I have a lot of stories, but none that I'm really going to tell anyone. So it's no, but I mean Martin's one of the best. He's always been. He's one of the good guys. That he's very genuine with people. He's always been with me. He's always looked after me, regardless of where I was. So if I was on top of the world, he was there for me as a mate. If I was down in the dumps, he's always been there. So generally, like he's one of the greatest guys I've ever met. Personally, I'm glad that he's like one of my good mates because he's always sort of been there. But on top of that, he's a hell of a worker as well. Do you know what I mean? So his personality aside of him being a good guy, he's one hell of a wrestler. Do you know what I mean? He's been all over. He's done everything. But I mean, there's a number of obviously stories to share, but probably for a off-air conversation, not a recording, not to be recorded and used later. But no, he's obviously he's been always a good guy. Most of it's me embarrassing me more than him, but that's probably why I'll leave him off.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. We'll save the blushes. We'll save the blushes. Tell me about your hair versus mustache match. I have to ask about this.
Yeah, so this was an idea by David Paris, who runs CXW down in Essex way, and he's at a big show coming up in November as well. He's one of the greatest promoters I've worked for in all the 20 years I've wrestled, mainly because his love for it. Like he admits that he's not been in wrestling long, but his passion for obviously what he does and his promoting of his shows. Like my first show I did for him was in the summer months, and he went there. He had barbecue on for the guys. He had a cooler full of like beers for after the matches, water, wine for the ladies who wanted wine, who asked for wine, Red Bulls, which is a big thing for me, everything like that in the freezer. Do you know what I mean? I'm a big energy drink guy, so we had all that, bottles of water, cold drinks, and I just look at it from the point of view of like this is him inviting us in to do a job for him. He's paying everyone there to do the job, but he goes that extra little mile just to chuck. Like I've been in locker rooms with the guys that bought water, and that's very appreciative. Do you know what I mean? The little things like that I think matter a lot more. But when you go down, the guy has the barbecue on for you. Do you know what I mean? He's flipping burgers to feed everyone. Do you know what I mean? It's like a little bit above and beyond.
Yeah, but class in there.
But as like he's out every day, every weekend, every other day, dressed as Macho Man, handing out flyers for his show. And he messaged me because he loves obviously. He'd seen me wrestling, loved me wrestling. He said, "Oh, I want to get you in the show. I had an idea, Da, 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 da. I said, yeah, whatever you need. Like I get a lot of messages like that. Like, well, whatever you need, mate, let me know. And we'll sort it. He goes, I want to do a Moustache versus back hair match against the guy, Logan. And from Outcast Pro Wrestling, I said, well, that's a new one. Do you know what I mean? But I'm up for it. Like if that's what you want to do, I'm happy to do it. Like to do stuff like that. So it just came about like that, and it was. I was like, yeah, do it. And I went down and I had a match with Logan, a good match. Like, he's a great guy as well, another good guy out there. Like that's what I mean. It's like you're up and down the country, you're meeting people. I've not seen Logan since then, but I keep an eye on him, and he's doing really good for himself. But he's so strong. Like being in there with him, like you always feel. For anyone who's been in the ring, you always feel safe with him there. Even as a big guy, you always feel safe when you're in with him.
Yeah.
But like we had a good match. Obviously, I won, obviously, and then I had to shave his back. So we used the wax strips for that on his back and things, and it created such like a bit of a buzz. But it was like I'm not going to stay there in the ring. Like I said, 3 or 4 wax strips is enough. I can't stay there and wax the guy's full back because he's a hairy dude. Like I was like, I'll be in there for an hour. How long have you got? How long have I got for my wax? And it's going to take a lot of times with that. So we did a few wax strips and stuff. But overall, like, it was a great environment to be around. And again, like I went down there and I seen a lot of the guys who I haven't seen in a long time, like the UK Pitbulls, like Fearless Flatliner, all these guys who I met when I was coming up. And it's always good to see them and share a locker room again, because it's like you've never missed a day. It's always nice to see people like that and catch up with them and things like that. So, but no, that's the CXW. Like they've got another big show coming up in November, so that's going to be a decent one as well. That's another. I've got a bull rope match against Rudy Root, so I'm looking forward to that one.
And they're kind of playing into your gimmick there, aren't they, as well? So. Yeah, that
match of choice. I'm trying to do bull rope matches everywhere now. I've got it there, so I just try to do them anywhere and everywhere.
Well, that kind of leads me on to my next question. How did you become a cowboy?
Well, it's always sort of the extension of yourself, who you are, and for me, like I grew up in a small rural town in Newfoundland in Canada called Carbonear, which was a town of about 3,000 people. So it's very much small town, country vibes. You know what I mean? People there listen to country music. You go to the bar. It's very down to earth. You like your fishing, you're hunting, you're outdoorsy type. There's none of this technology, none of this stuff like that. And then when I was a teenager, we moved up to Calgary. And then from Calgary, I moved over here. But Calgary's a cow town anyway, with cowboys and stuff like that, Western and stuff. So again, I was up there doing the rodeos, and then I ended up moving to Texas for a bit, and it's sort of always something that I've liked, like loved country music. I love the country get up, the attire, massive Stan Hansen fan, massive fan
Yeah.
of Terry Funk and people like that. And I just thought, I am a redneck, I am a country boy. Why can't I? Why shouldn't I just be me and be a cowboy? Do you know what I mean? And be what I want to be. So that's where it sort of came about. Like I was sort of looking to freshen up the character a bit because I was doing my character for a while. I was sort of like I didn't feel really that was true to me anymore, and I thought I just want to be who I am, and that was sort of the country boy what I am now. So
That makes a lot of sense, definitely. I mean, going back to breaking into wrestling in 2003 and as to how it is now, what are the main differences with British wrestling?
well, I think it's a lot of nowadays. I think it's probably going to be misinterpreted when I say it, but it's a lot of politically correctness to an extreme. And I don't think it is just in wrestling, but I think it is in everyday life as well.
Yeah.
Where people tend to, like back in the day, like people wouldn't necessarily what they would call bully you, but it would be more of an environment where you could take the piss out of someone and they would toughen up about it, laugh about it, then they'd take the piss out of you and you'd move on with your life. Do you know what I mean? Nobody was victimized. It was all just a bit of a laugh and stuff like that. And I know obviously there was the big obviously movement speaking out and stuff that happened that but I think there's a difference between having a laugh where everyone's involved in the joke and take the joke and then victimizing people or assaulting people and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That needs to be removed from pro wrestling. So I'm not trying to say, oh yeah, well everything was great back then. But I think it is one of the things where you say, I think a lot of the times there's a lot of things where people go, wrestling's for everybody. And I agree with that to a degree, but I agree that wrestling's for everybody. Being a wrestler isn't for everybody. And I think it's a lot of the times it's like you have people who put, so for instance, I know there's a few wrestlers who wrestle for a Northeast promotion, and one of them's prone to seizures, so he'll just have seizures randomly. And he's out there wrestling people, and I'm saying, well, it's not safe for him to pick someone up. And what if he has a seizure? It's not going to be putting him at risk. But if you go to slam someone or pick someone up or something, you have a seizure and you're dropping them on the head. Do you know what I mean? It's just, and it's the way it looks for us as well. And knowingly doing that, and I get it, there's always something you could do. You could be involved, you could be a ring announcer, you could be a manager even to a degree, do you know what I mean? Where he's not getting that involved with someone, but I think it's a dangerous environment to be in. And I get the whole, if you want to come and train and you want to be part of the atmosphere and the environment and you want to get in with the boys and you want to do a bit of wrestling, you want to do your training matches and stuff like that, that's fair. But if you've got a crowd of small kids watching a wrestler and a wrestler goes into a seizure in the middle of the ring, like that's not something kids, I know it can't be helped. I know it can't be helped, but kids shouldn't be, you shouldn't put it in there where there's a chance of something like that happening.
Absolutely, no. I agree.
It's the recklessness, recklessness like that sort of wouldn't be around 20 years ago because that guy would have been told, sorry, mate, maybe you could do something, ring bell, ring announcer, something like that, but nobody would feel safe with you doing to them in the ring. And I think it's that inclusivity that we need, where people need to feel welcome to come to wrestling training and people need to feel welcome to be there. But you also have to have some level of fitness and some level of ability. And I think too many people are running it now as like, there's no, I think very few people have, I think a lot of people love wrestling. A lot of people love wrestling, but I don't think very many people are in love with wrestling. If that makes sense. I think they love it as a fan and they want to do it because they think it's cool. And then, but I don't think people love it for what it is, which is like the art form, storytelling, the psychology, the philosophies behind it, the moves, why you do the moves, when you do the moves, like aiming, how do I improve all the time? People are quite happy to go and wrestle twice a month at the local working men's pub and then go to work the next day and go, oh yeah, I'm a wrestler, you know. Do you know what I mean? And that's
I do.
And it's nothing wrong with like having a regular job and nothing wrong with making ends meet, obviously to support your family and everything like that, that's fine. But like when you just do it, you have no real, and there's people who are happy to do it on that level, but you still need to take it as serious as what you would on a professional level, because people are paying to see you. Do you know what I mean? And if you're not taking the job seriously and you're pissing on it or shitting on it, it's hurting the guys who do it for a living, the guys who rely on it to bring money in, because you don't really care, because you go to work Monday around the drinks cooler, you can say, "Oh, I've had a hardcore match the weekend, and I went in drawing pins the weekend, aren't I? And I'm pretty hard, aren't I?" Do you know what I mean? It's just cringy. Sorry for the language, but I think it's just that's what it breeds. It breeds the wrong sorts of. It's not. It was a secret society originally where people were kept out of it. Do you know what I mean? And then it was kept a secret, and it was kept as a work, and people didn't know whether it was real or whether it was predetermined or anything like that. They would just look at it as pro wrestling, and now I think it's gone so far off the rails where people go in and go, "Oh, you coming to see me wrestle on Saturday? I'm winning." Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, what's going on there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's too far, isn't it?
Like it's certain people like that around that you hear and you go, well, like you're ruining it for people, because people want to go and get lost in it. People want, like, wrestling fans want to go to a wrestling show. Like, that's why I got a lot of people who say to me, "Oh, Tim, I'll come watch you wrestle." And I was like, if you're not a wrestling fan, don't. And because, like, it's nice to see. I'll meet you for a coffee beforehand. If I'm in the town where a friend of mine is, and they're not a wrestling fan, so I'll meet you for a coffee before the show, or I'll meet you for a drink before the show. But I'm not gonna have you come to the show if you're not a fan, because you're not going to be there for the right reasons. And I want people to be there and watch the match and go, which way is it going to go? Which way is it going to, like, I don't know. And I want the story to tell that, you know what I mean? I don't know which way this is going to go. And then the outcome is the outcome. But I think it's one thing to sort of make it inclusive, but it's another thing to just, it's like, if you look at the magic circle, you have a lot of magicians out there that still won't tell you how to do a trick. And you know it's an illusion, or you know it's a trick or some sort of trick to it. But they're not going to tell you. But then you've got pro wrestling, and everyone's quite happy just to go out and tell everyone everything and act like it's not going to be a big deal. And the only people they're hurting then is the actual fans.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You actually enjoy it for what it is, because the fan doesn't want to know. It's like when you watch a pay-per-view the day after. If you're away or you're whatever, you say, "I'll watch the pay-per-view tomorrow." You try all your means to avoid social media, to avoid everything, so you don't ruin the element of watching it and enjoying it for what it is. And I think that's what people lose, is people love wrestling because they want to get lost in wrestling. It's an escape for people. Do you know, it's people can watch it and go, "I don't have to worry about that bill, because at the moment now I'm more bothered about, is he going to beat him for that title?" Do you know, and that's what you need to give people. Whereas I think people nowadays it's more about them and less about the people paying to sit in the seats, which is a sad state of affairs.
It's gone too far the other way, hasn't it? No, I'm completely with you on that. I mean, do you think, going to the Netflix show, The Wrestlers, do you think shows like that have kind of contributed to that kind of culture?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like, I enjoyed The Wrestlers.
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
The Wrestlers are gonna actually bring to light to people more about the works behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I think they don't really expose anything that people don't already know. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing on there that's exposing the business for what it really is. Do you know what I mean? It's like people say, I think the only people that'll watch that are proper wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And some people might watch it out of a bit of a curiosity, like an odd curiosity to it. But I don't think it's going to take away from anything, because I don't think there's anything on that show. From what I've seen, I've only watched the first few yet. I've still got to watch the rest of them.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen so far, there's nothing really in it that a normal wrestling fan wouldn't know. Obviously, it does give you a bit of insight into the backstories of people and people working and how hard it is for an independent wrestler to make ends meet, and the work they have to put in to do it. Like for say, for instance, my wife, Rachel, when she was watching it with me, it's like when they were talking about cash flow, and his wife was saying, "You know, I'm home with the kids and he's away wrestling. But I know if I asked him to stop wrestling, that's taking a piece of him away. And he wouldn't be happy. He would do it, but he wouldn't be happy. It he wouldn't be himself anymore. And like, she's like, I can relate to that. Do you know what I mean? So it's good in a sense of things like that, because people watch it and go, yeah, I can see it. But I think unless you're in pro wrestling properly, not like these hobbycraft wrestlers, but the people who take the job seriously, unless you're involved with wrestling to a degree and are truly in love with wrestling, you'll never understand the beauty of it. You'll never understand the art of it. You'll look at it and you'll go, and you'll see it from the outside, but like it's one of them things. It's like you never truly understand it unless you're in it. And I think once you get that bug and you get that bite, that's it. You're in.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, definitely. But no, you're completely right. I mean, I don't know, how long you plan to continue to do this, other than finally getting to a new British promotion until your wheels come off.
Yeah, until the wheels come off.
Until you get to, other than getting to a new British promotion show, which hopefully is very soon, what are your plans for the future? Where do you see yourself?
To me, I'm all about the memories. I'm just obviously going along, enjoying the ride, wrestling. A lot of like new guys coming through. There's a lot of very talented guys coming up through. Like you look at the schools that we've got now. You've got Top Rope Wrestling Academy in Burnley Way, run by Sheik. You've got Pursuit Pro Wrestling in Sheffield, trained by Liam Slater. You know what I mean? You've got up north, you've got Michael Limerick runs a training school, Battle Ready, that trains a lot of the guys who wrestle on the All-Star shows. You've got Rampage Brown's training again up here. And I think it's like you look out and you see all these high quality training schools and all these guys that are coming up and being taught wrestling the right way and respect and love for the sport and stuff like that. And you look at it going like, these are the people that I would love to get in there with and wrestle. But for me personally, I've never really had a plan with wrestling. Like all my life, I'm obsessed with being a wrestler. I want to be a wrestler, and I'm a wrestler now. And I'll always be a wrestler until I can't be a wrestler anymore. And then when I can't be a wrestler, I'll be a manager or a ring announcer or something. But I'll never leave. I'll be here forever and ever. You know what I mean? It's just one of them things where it's like, obviously I love pro wrestling and I always will. So it's, for me, it's one of those things where I'll ride it until the wheels come off. But I think for me personally, I want to see more countries. I recently did some wrestling in Canada. I did some wrestling in Denmark, places like that. And it was great wrestling over there and wrestling for the different fans and seeing what they liked and speaking to them after the show. And it's such a warm and opening environment everywhere you go as people love what you do. It's good that you can go and relate. And obviously I'm hoping next year I'll get a few more different countries to wrestle in. I'll do a bit more traveling and a few more shows. Obviously I'm doing a lot with WAW at the moment. We've got some big shows with them coming up. Obviously I've got the match with Zach Zodiac on the 8th of October or the 7th of October for October Outrage. So that's going to be a good show, you know. And I'm down there for another weekend wrestling their performance centre, which is top notch. And again, they're running training down in Norwich, and they've got a lot of great guys down there. But it's such a close knit environment when you go down to WAW. It's such a great training centre they have. It's such a great setup. It's like they have the performance centre there. They're getting 200, 300 in every week. You know what I mean? In wrestling in front of these live crowds that just eat it up. And every fan in there is there because they love pro wrestling, and you can't get a better audience than that. Do you know what I mean? To perform in front of.
Definitely not. But
for me, it's like wrestle for as many different promotions as I can. Obviously, I've opened up the book now for 24, so I'm starting to take a few bookings for that, and just enjoy what I'm doing. Obviously, I always say there's three things that I just want to do, and I just want to get out there. I want to get as much exposure as possible. And just enjoy myself and create memories with people. You know, if I can get out there and do that, then I'm a happy man. That's all my plans are.
Sounds like one of the best plans I've ever heard. Definitely, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I really do appreciate the detail that you've gone into. And I certainly look forward to speaking to you again in the future once you've done a couple of shows for us. Thank you very much for your time this evening, buddy.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Take care.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye bye.